So one way that we adhere to the codes and conventions of the typical mockumentary style piece is through our camera work. So we use a handheld documentary style of cinematography, which gives the illusion that the whole film is a documentary and that these are real events that are taking place. I think it adds to the comedy a lot because once those events become more real and they feel more real, it's kind of more absurd that they are actually happening. Like Mr. Forsyth having the paper thrown at his head and Mr. McQueen doing his weird tiger dance, whatever, to the dance music.
Yeah, and the conventions of, because we took inspiration from The Office, didn't we? Convention of that is, obviously, we talked about breaking the fourth wall in our last question.
We did.
And that is very much a common thing, a common occurrence that happens in these stuff in mockumentary pieces. So we wanted to really get that across, and Mr. Wilkes looking at the camera and acknowledging the cameraman is there.
And again, with the in Mr. McQueen scenes where you look at the kids and they're just sort of completely, they're terrified.
So we wanted to get across that it was like a fly on the wall sort of.
Yeah, it's a look into a real place.
Yeah. So we conform to the typical circular narrative of a short film, having a school bell play at the start and the end of our piece to signal the start and end of a typical school day. And it's just a nice simple way to bookend the piece.
And as our SurveyMonkey results show, 100% of people who did our SurveyMonkey, they understood the circular narrative of the film, which, it just shows that we're successful in using that convention, really.
Yeah.
So one of the conventions of short films that we challenge is the idea of having the audience's expectations sort of flipped on their head. So what we do in Educating Wangels is, because it's a mockumentary style piece, after things like The Office, people do expect the characters to be somewhat incompetent and to be, exaggerated and a bit useless, which is something that we do in Educating Wangels. So in that sense, we're challenging the idea of having their expectations subverted. But then also, in a way, we conform to the idea of that, because at the end Mr. Wilkes dies, and a lot of people said that they found that unexpected, they didn't see that twist coming. I think we sort of go both ways with that.
Okay, so we conform to the idea of having one developed character, and that would be obviously being Mr. Wilkes, the head teacher. He appears in almost every scene of the piece and is mainly the sole focus of every scene he's in. And despite the piece being very character-driven and having various comic characters throughout the piece, Mr. Wilkes is really the man.
Yeah, he's very clearly the one that is meant to be focused on.
Yeah, I think like SurveyMonkey, people found that.
Yeah, 100% of people understood Mr. Wilkes as the developed character.
So the catalyst of Educating Wangels would be the Ofsted inspection, the arrival of Mr. Mills in the staff room, because that sort of sets off the events of the day, that sets the tone, and it gives it sets the stage and gives the opportunity for all the events that happen.
Yeah, it's like the stimulus for the controversy.
Yeah, and all the unprofessionalism and all of that stuff.
Yeah.
So I think we definitely do conform to the idea of having a catalyst.
Okay, so we include some interview scenarios which are seen in modern mockumentary TV shows such as The Office. This is to establish our characters. We also use text starting with the teacher's name to obviously establish the name of the character. And
yeah, it's really just to introduce what they're about, and
obviously
the interview scenarios give us an insight into what the characters actually think themselves, as opposed to what everyone else thinks of them. So it's their perception of themselves that comes through in those interview scenarios, which we can then contrast when we actually show, for instance, Mr. Forsyth the lesson, where his kids don't actually love him and they're actually pretty awful.
Yeah, and I think that also backs up and it makes it pretty clear that we are doing a mockumentary.
Yeah.
Because there's no other TV shows that have,
those one-on-one
character.
interviews.
One-on-one interviews where he's talking to the camera, which I think.
So the interviews start before the actual teacher's scenario takes place.
Yeah.
So it just shows them a bit more about.
Yeah, it gives you some context to the person before you actually see them in action and doing their lesson.
So much like mockumentaries that are shown on TV, we have narration over the top of our piece to demonstrate just what's happening. So at the start of the piece, we have a narrator talking about Wangels College, and it's really just setting up where the piece is set, what's going on, the Ofsted inspection. He's just laying out what the piece is going to be about, and then we also have narration over who is the sole focus of that scene. So it could be Mr. Wilkes, could be Mr. Forsyth.
I think what the narrator does in this piece is it serves as a way to sort of link the pieces together
Like
Yeah.
narrative,
in a way
like
that
flow the
feels
narrative.
yeah, exactly. It feels natural, the flow of each scene to the
Gives
other
it
one.
a nice pace.
Yeah,
For
exactly.
example, like
It's-
sets off the narrative by telling the audience about the Ofsted inspection and how Mr. Wilkes is under
Yeah,
some
and it
sort of
introduces the place and you know
Mm.
the time and the setting and all of that stuff.
pressure. It also introduces a bit about Mr. Forsyth as well. Which is,
Yeah.
Okay, so our piece is very character driven. So we've used a small group of different comical characters to appeal to a mainstream audience. So I think on the Survey Monkey, everyone had a favourite character.
Mm.
You know, despite Miss Wilkes being the most developed, I think there are different characters to sort of drive the piece. At the start of the piece, we took inspiration from not just documentaries but common TV shows that have music playing over narration. And the background music just sort of sets the scene or introduces the setting of where and what's going to happen during the piece. And we also complemented that with shots of the school environment at the start, and then in between each scene we had shots of the school environment to make a clear break and change in whose scene it's going to be, if it's McQueen's scene or Forsyth or Wilkes.
So we used a common area that a lot of people are going to be familiar with. A school is something that a lot of people can relate to. A lot of people have obviously been to school. So I think it's an area that a lot of people understand.
It's like using the established shots that helps to obviously replicate each school very well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think with it being such an everyday scenario, like a work environment, I think when we put it onto social media and Survey
Yeah.
Monkey, that's why people found it funny.
Yeah, because it
In a
was
way.
relatable. and
Yeah, it's
everyone's-
relatable. Yeah,
Like obviously, no one's quite had a teacher up to the standard of Mr.
but
Forsyth or
people
up to the
can
standard of Mr.
people can
McQueen,
relate
but
to those sort of.
Yeah, everyone's had
exaggerated-
that one teacher that they're sort of a little bit unsure
Which
of.
adds to
Yeah,
the comedy
like a little bit
thing,
crazy.
Which adds to the comedy
So-
thing.
Yeah, which adds to the whole comedy genre and the comedy theme that we've got going through it.